Alright guys, welcome back for another one here out in the garage on the 550. Today we're loading up some subsonic 9mm, and these are from the Eggleston Bullet Company. 147 grain, a truncated cone design, I believe. I don't know if that's what they call it, but it's looking pretty coney to me. It's a non-lube groove design, slick-sided. Very nice, and these are high-tech coated. And they were kind enough to send a nice sample pack for us to play with. So far I've loaded up several others from them, and that was all very smooth. You know, as long as I do everything properly on my end. If you remember a few episodes back, we had some trouble finding a seating stem, but since we got that ironed out with the Lee set here, pretty much zero issues since then. So this is our last one for the 9mm series. Then we'll get on to some 45 Colt or some 38 357 shenanigans. Should be a good old time, I'll tell you fellers what. But if you're just joining us here in the middle of the series, the goal is to test for some real accuracy here and, you know, see which of these cast bullet companies are, you know, any decent or not. But really, I have pretty high hopes for all of them. They all pretty much use the same, like a Lyman number 2. I think is what most of them list, which is a pretty common alloy for your standard pistol, plinking, and such like that if you're casting your own stuff. And as you can tell, these have been different colors. They are high-tech coated, which is slightly different than powder coating. Kind of the same end result and the same goal is to encapsulate the projectiles in some sort of a polymer jacket to protect your barrel, rifling, such and such from leading, as well as keep some of that lead smoke out of the air. If you shoot indoors a lot, you'll notice it's far less smoky than just bare traditional lubed lead projectiles. You can also run them hotter, higher velocities for a given hardness level. That doesn't mean you can just launch them at 3,000 feet per second and replace your, you know, factory jacketed stuff. Ooh, that felt weird. Don't force it. I don't know why it felt weird. Did we already dump powder though? We did. Okay, we'll just come back real quick. No big deal. Alright, let's start that one over just to make sure. Pull this guy out so we don't prime. Powder measure reset. But everything looks good. We started to seat our bullet. Some just felt tight. I think this guy here is one of those stupid brass plated steel cases. So yeah, quite a bit of effort taken there to expand this one. So I'm predicting when I go to seat the bullet here, it's going to be slightly less expanded because they spring back more than a brass case would. And yeah, it'll work, but you ideally don't want to be reloading a whole lot of steel cases. But some of those silly companies, they make it look like a brass case. Brass washed steel or brass coating or whatever, but yeah, whatever. That's a nice looking piece of brass too. Anyways, yeah, a nice sampling here of the high-tech coatings. It looks like some zombie green. We've got some translucent red here. It looks kind of like my powder coating from Eastwood, the ruby red that I really like, except that's more of the translucent, shiny look to it. And then, yeah, zombie green, black, and some navy blue. They all look very nice. They all look very nice. Would you just look at that? And I mic'd them up. They're right at 356 diameter. I weighed about 5 or 6 of them, and they were all like 146.7 up to 147.7. So just about a grain of variance there, which out of 147 grains is like a 1/6 of a percentage or something. So not very much of a variance there. Very nice, very consistent is what I'm getting at. So these should be shooting just fine. You know, I like to back up the hill to say, I think it's right at 55, 60 yards where I stand. And, you know, some of my crappy cast projectiles that I do could be some of the reasons I miss, aside from just being crappy at holding when I'm shooting offhanded, but maybe some of these uber consistent factory projectiles, maybe they'll make me pay attention a little harder to my own casting and try and make that process a little more refined as well. That's not to say I don't have bad luck with any of my cast projectiles and whatnot. Maybe I just need to focus more on dialing in a hardness or a match of velocity to a specific hardness rather. And it's not even velocity that changes how the cast bullets react, it's a pressure amount. So, you know, powder A could give you 900 feet per second at 20,000 psi. Powder B could give you the same velocity but be twice the pressure, you know? So powder B with the higher pressure would probably burn into the coating and probably burn the bottom of the bullet and smear some leading through your rifling, whereas the lower pressure would just obturate perfectly, seal that off, push it down your barrel just like it's supposed to. And they'd both be moving in the same velocity, but one would shoot better, one would tumble, one would group for you, one would look like a pattern, one would leave you with a nice clean barrel at the end of the day, and one would leave you with a horrible lead removal job at the end of the day. So while I did say, you know, you can pretty much push them a lot hotter than traditional lubes, there are still limits, of course. There are limits, of course. But powder coating, and I guess high-tech coating, I've never personally done it before. The high-tech coating, that is, I powder coat everything that I shoot for and reload. But it's basically magic, and you don't have to worry about leading anymore. You just have to match your hardness to your pressure and target velocity. Oops, -1. And of course, if you have a gas check design, you can always use those as well. That'll help, while not necessary, once again, they will give you a nice, perfectly even base, which could aid in accuracy. Because if you're trying to, you know, push this down your bore and say your gas check's a little crooked or you've got some kind of inclusion on your bullet here, the pressure is going to push to one side or the other unless it's perfectly flat. So the gas check should even that out, which would reduce run out as it's creeping down your barrel and towards the target. So many do recommend gas checking. I've just started to gas check more often than not if the bullet calls for it. But if not, I don't worry about it. As you can see, like I said, these are a newer design, an NLG no lube groove. They are slick-sided and meant for these types of coatings. So you've got all that nice bearing surface rubbing on your barrel, but you don't get any leading. Isn't that nice? And like I said, if you look up on these companies' sites, they mostly advertise as the Lyman number 2 alloy or hardball. I'm not saying that those two are the same thing, but they will use one or the other. And it's about time to refill our primers up here. Bingo, there we go. And here we are so far, but it's actually getting a little bit past old Dummy's bedtime, so we're going to call it a night for now. But as you can see, these are just coming out just perfectly how you like them to. No issues at all. Loading up these Eggleston 147 grain. I'm going to call them a truncated cone. Maybe I should check their website. Freaking idiot. So thanks again for tuning in. Stay tuned and wait for this awesome range day we're going to have. A big old Jamboree 9mm shoot-off testing showdown. So stay tuned for that once the weather warms up. But otherwise, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of loading this winter here for the next couple months before it does warm up. And this year, I've probably said it a few times now, but I really want to focus on rifle loading and zeroing in on some actual load development rather than just here's 5 random starting charges. One of those 5 works better than the other. We're done. No, we're going to go into overall length and jumps to our lands. We're going to get a little bit more refined with our powder measuring. I've got a Charge Master now, so I can, pour those more accurately. So on and so forth. So thanks again for hanging out, guys, and we'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.